Hello and welcome everybody to the Casual Spikes podcast, episode 18, and we have a special one, I guess. We have finally gotten our bands that we have been hoping for in the modern format, and of course Pioneer as well, getting a pretty huge shakeup as we approach closer to the regional championship in Washington D.C., taking place on October 4th through the 6th. As always, I'm Dakota, and I probably should have said that first because maybe you didn't know that was my name from the nameplate and everything, and maybe you haven't watched the other previous 18 episodes. But I'm Dakota, aka Karate23 here on YouTube, and joining me as always is my partner in crime, my co-host Randy from Modern with Randy. How's it going, Randy?
Not too bad, not too bad. Pretending I have a grasp on what's going on in Pioneer.
True. I mean, you're probably having a better time than Nadu is right now.
Yeah, but that bird needed to go extinct.
I know. It was nice. I celebrated the banned and restricted announcements with chicken wings from Buffalo Wild Wings. Mm. The sweet Nadu sauce, which is the tears of mouth breathers that thought that that card was okay for the format. Oh,
And
but
then
yeah, go ahead.
I was say then Grief got banned too for reasons.
Yeah, a year, probably a year late. What you know, we're planning on getting into all that. I of
Yes.
course have derailed myself, which means I have derailed the whole show, and I'm not sorry for it. That's my yeah. Thank you. That's the draw to being here is that Dakota can't stay on track. We'll see how long he can stay on topic. Of course, before we talk about all the bannings and stuff, because we're going to be giving you kind of a recap of what got banned, potential, you know, ramifications that are going to be kind of going on for the format with those bannings taking place. Kind of giving our thoughts and opinions, of course, on the format. Because why the heck else would you be here watching two people on a Friday night, or I guess Saturday morning when this is going up, give their opinions on some pretty sweet cardboard square formats. But before we get into any of all that, of course, if you're not already subscribed to our channels here, you know, because I know that you want more content from me, you want more content from Randy. You know, we have our own channels. If you want to catch my videos, you can subscribe to this channel here, ring the notification bell, all that fun, happy stuff. I know I talk a lot about Modern Pioneer, looking to expanding kind of the repertoire of content, and then Randy over there is focusing mainly on whatever the RCQ season is, but he does do a decent amount of Modern and Pioneer as well, and you'll be seeing him do some Standard as well, I believe, when we get to that RCQ season sometime in 2025. Don't give me that look.
I think it's the end of 2024 is standard.
Oh, like we'll be going like December into
I guess
January.
yeah, I guess I don't know what they're doing for the holidays. I don't know if they're just breaking for the holidays and now like going people are gonna be with family. I'll just be surrounded by my best friends, Chandra and Jace. So it'll be fine.
The standard RCQ season is going to run from Thanksgiving till the end of Christmas,
Yeah, just
leaving like two or three good weekends where there wouldn't actually be anything going on. You're well enough past one holiday, but before the other one.
well, see, that's how I'm gonna spike all my RCQs. You don't understand. I plan to go to the RCQ right after Thanksgiving. Just everyone's still stuff from Turkey has grandma over still, and I'm like, no, I need to play my cards.
Everyone pushed their RCQ back to like 4 o'clock instead of like noon, so they could all have Thanksgiving dinner.
Exactly.
And like all of them are just asleep, but I'm the only one that shows up.
Take the
But
W's.
put on my crown, give me my foiled, you know, unplayable like Pioneer card because that's going to be the promo for some reason for Standard.
No, it'll be something stupid like Goblin Guide.
That's just wild that that was even like that was the promo that they gave out for Pioneer was Goblin Guide.
You know, it's definitely card legal in Pioneer Goblin Guide.
You know, it's just something about them like when it comes to modern doing things way later than they should have because like Goblin Guide should have been like a promo for something, you know, a lot sooner than 2024. Maybe at a time where, you know, it was actually playable.
He's had a promo already.
Isn't it like the store promo or whatever, like the
Yeah, it's
old
like a
border?
store promo. Yeah, it's like a store promo, like old border foil. I owned four of them because they were the cheapest version when I was trying to play some godforsaken burn deck at one point in time. And like, I just like I got the I think I almost have a playset of the new promo ones now too, and I'm like, oh man. These are worth nothing to me.
I'm proud of you.
If anyone needs the promo Springleaf drum, let me know. I will mail you one. I have enough. I think
When
I'm
he
I'm 4 or 5 playsets. I wouldn't even known. I didn't play that many RCQs to get that many. There was just RCQs that were giving me a playset at a time.
Dude, there's a handful that I went to last season, and there was some that like had 10, 12 people that showed up. They gave out like one Springleaf drum, and I've been to other ones where like they had twice as many people, and they're handing out two to each one. And I think another one I went to just gave me a play set of Springleaf drum. There's like, here, take them. It's just free cards, and I'm like, I don't want these.
Like you don't understand. These are going to get put into like packing the other cards, so there's more stuff to be stable. Like
Hey, if we've talked about that we're going to the regional championship in Washington D.C.
mhm.
If anybody watching this happens to find one of us, I guess me or whatever at like the regional championship, whatever, I basically I'll give away Randy Springleaf drums for him. I'll get it taken care of.
I'm gonna bring them. I'm gonna bring them. I'll bring them just so you can give them away. I'll
Well,
keep the one I need for maybe the one time I play Commander or play Insert or the Saga deck that's running one of them, and then the rest you can have.
bring your 5 play sets. I'll bring my 3 play sets, and we'll start giving them out to people. How about that?
There we go. This is how we'll become known, giving away 20 cent cards.
Like, wow, this is worthless.
Yeah,
You're welcome. It's kind of like that Sailor Moon meme where he's like, glad I could help, and she's like, but you didn't do anything. You literally did nothing,
exactly.
and then leave. All right. With all that nonsense out of the way, that was your fault, Randy. You just played
That's
off
fair.
me. Like,
That's fair.
I'm blaming you when it was totally my fault. Still, probably. So, you know, we're gonna talk about like the bannings, of course. They're the big ones. We're gonna start with Pioneer, just because that's just seems natural to start with Pioneer over Modern. It feels like. So, Pioneer, we got, these are pretty big bannings. These are pretty impactful. We have Amalia Benavides Aguirre that got banned from obviously the namesake Amalia combo deck, and then we had Sorin Imperious Bloodlord of vampire fame that also started to get thrown into Rakdos mid range because they're just like, hey, if they can do it, why can't we do it? And we still get to play Shieldred. So pretty sweet.
No, I was happy to see. I wasn't happy to see these cards go, but I was happy to see these cards go. I think that Soren needed to get banned or Vein Ripper. I'll still stand on the hill that you could have banned either one. I get their reasoning for banning Soren because it's the enabler. It can potentially produce this same combo again with insert whatever card they decide to ban or print it like 8 mana like God tier vampire, and Soren's just like God tier. You say I'll play him. So I'm happy to ban Soren. I think that like Soren definitely has a more interesting role. Like we were talking about before the podcast, where like Soren's way more interesting in the sense of like you could do more things with it. There's like a whole vampire sub theme you can play with it, and like now the vampire sub theme in Pioneer is basically dead because the only payoff to being vampires was a 3 mana planeswalker that was pretty absurd when you looked at it. Um, for what it did, like it threw cards, it grew cards, and it put things into play for free. Like that's insane. So definitely vampires is now like dead in the format essentially. Like you could still obviously play a vampire sub theme deck. No one's gonna stop you. You just might get laughed out of your tournament hall at the same time.
Yeah, I think what we were talking about, like, if you want to play vampires as more of an aggro deck, it seems like mono white humans has like kind of started to come back. Of course, we see like Boros Convoke. I've talked about my videos where I expect that deck to at least see like people to revisit the deck because obviously it does something very powerful. And I think kind of the light bulb moment for me is just like a lot of these aggro decks have this sort of big thing it gets to do at the end. Like it has a build up where like humans is like 1 mana dude into Lord into like Adeline into like going so wide and so big that you just go like Thalia's Lieutenant. Like Thalia's Lieutenant put like 7-8 power into play on top of growing the Lieutenant 3 or 4 power. Convoke on turn 2 could have either 14 power in play or what is it, like 9 power in play, but then also draw 2 cards, which is going to then put more power into play because you're probably going to play Ibidane's Recruiter and just smack your opponent. Vampires doesn't have that anymore. It doesn't have the big like turn 3, turn 4. Like you can play a vampire on that turn, but it's not like as impactful as
It's a
some of those other
shitty
decks.
mid-range deck.
Yeah, like you're basically a worse mono white deck. Like your mana gets worse because you're more likely playing two colors versus just mono white, where you kind of get some utility lands. You get to play like Mutavault and things like that. Where I think like black white, you could still probably play Mutavault, but I think you have like a hard time like supporting that mana base when you're trying to be a deck that's playing a bunch of 2 or 3 drops. And Boros Convoke again, 14 power on turn 2. Like how the heck? Like obviously there's ways to beat it, but like how do you beat it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, I do think that Boros Convoke has been out of the meta for so long because it could not beat Amalia, um, that people forgot about this. And even in case in point, we see the modern 64 man challenge on 8/26 that the first place deck was Boros Convoke. Like like literally Amalia got banned and Boros Convoke's like, all right, hold my beer. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're back.
We're so
And like
back.
I was so excited to see this deck come back. And like this is one of the things where I think people don't understand the problem that Pioneer had for a long time is like we saw all these mid range decks and like control decks start to like cannibalize themselves because there's no such thing as aggro. Like there's that Gruul aggro deck or like Boros aggro deck that ran around and like they could do well in tournaments. Like they did put up some numbers, but they only put up numbers when Amalia wasn't showing up. And as soon as Amalia showed back up, they immediately dropped back down because Amalia just either causes the game to go to a draw or goes, "Hey man, I got 83 life on turn 3, um, and a 21/21. You know what? I'll take away the 21/21. I have 83 life and a collected company or another good card on top of my deck. Your go.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? You can't do 83 damage in like the same time that I can rebuild an entire board state. Cool, I'm gonna win. And so like aggro just hasn't been a part of the format. So now that aggro is a part of the format, all these mid-range decks now have a game plan against these aggro decks. Because otherwise, like you're going to see Boros Convoke just literally run over the format. And we saw this when Boros Convoke first came out. Um, the old Rakdos mid-range deck refused to acknowledge that that was a deck. There were so many times I played against that deck, and like they would have like they'd have the 4 mana board wipe of odds or evens. Like that's cool, man. You got that on 4 mana. I'm swinging for 14 on 3, and you better hope that you have that board wipe on 4,
Mm-hmm.
because if not, you're losing. And so like Boros Convoke just has gotten more consistent too. It's picked up Novice Apprentice, which is just Inspector, or Novice Inspector, sorry,
Yeah.
which is just 3 mana Inspector #2. It's picked up the case card. I can't think what
The gateway or something like that.
yeah, Case of the Gateway Express. It's got to pick up that, and it's gotten to make its mana basis better in the sense of like we're playing way more white cards now, so we're splashing red essentially for Ibidane's Recruiter, Gleeful Demolition, and the Epicure, Voldaren Epicure, and the main deck. So like we're just way more consistent on our mana base, and the deck is just way better. Like it's just able to win and have a great payoffs early. Like this is a deck that you need to answer its creatures early on, and they can still just put a bunch of power into play with you playing like 1 or 2 removal spells.
Oh yeah, and it was definitely one of my picks for like an early winner of the format because like you were saying, like Amalia was essentially a deck where if it somehow didn't win the game, like when Amalia does its thing, it does it on turn 3. You need to have an answer for the Amalia on board, and then you need to have an answer for the card that's either going to rebuild and then basically have them gain more life, and then eventually find Aether Flux Reservoir, or you have to beat the Aether Flux Reservoir on top of their deck that they're going to then draw and kill you with like 2 times over. So I think with that out of the format, I think Rakdos Vampires like maybe probably like would have struggled against a Convoke deck, but I think playing like Vein Ripper on turn 3 is like a way it can like block the biggest thing, and as long as it survives the attack, slowly gain life, and then when it untaps and gets to use its removal spells, then I think it kind of starts to like shift the tide in its favor. But I think with those two decks gone, and Vein Ripper essentially is like a thing that is available in the format, but probably not a thing people are going to be doing in the format with any regularity, nowhere near what they were doing it now, that Boros Convoke at least should get the eyeballs put on it, and there should be kind of a debate early on where is Gruul aggro the better deck, or is Boros Convoke the better aggro deck? And I think it just comes down to like, are people going to be playing more board wipes? Are people going to be playing more targeted removal? And I think Convoke plays better against targeted removal as long as your opponent doesn't have like a million of it on the early turns, and they also need to know like when to do it, because if they sit and wait on it, then they just end up getting blown out by you getting to play your Convoke thing, and then sure you remove a 2/2 or a 1/1 off the board, but they get to draw 2 cards and they still have 11, 12 power in play still, and they have a giant 4/4 where your creatures aren't going to check it until like 2 turns later, and yet you still have to deal with the other creatures. So it'll be kind of interesting to see where things line up. It seems like Gruul aggro is kind of like taking the spot, but I also think that's just because it's a deck that's a little bit easier to go all into and just kind of like play around some of the more some of the other targeted removal that people are playing in the format currently.
Yeah, I think the RC is going to be decided by how much spot removal versus board wipes for the better part. And so like the problem is like decks want to play spot removal because spot removal is good against every deck, essentially. Like yeah, it's bad against Lotus Field, it's bad against Control, but those aren't. Lotus Field's a real deck, but it's not a real deck. And Control is like it's not out of the format, but it's on the back. It's on his back foot right now because it's waiting to see what's settling, right? Because like Control can obviously metagame against like a heavy aggro deck or a heavy aggro format, but if you're you're like, all right, I got my 4 temporary lockdowns in the main, I got my 16 spot removal spells, let's go, and you queue into Niv to Light, Niv to Light, Niv to Light. You're like, cool, man, I'm cool. I did nothing. That was fun. Or like you queue into insert like that mid-range deck, mid-range deck, mid-range deck, and he's like, okay, cool. These temporary lockdowns look really good. I wish I had any kind of like looting spell in my deck to not have them in my hand anymore. Awesome. Glad I decided to play this. So I do think it's going to be interesting to see what we see take over. But I think arguably Boros Convoke is probably the best aggro deck to play right now, in the sense of like it pretty much can beat everything in a straight up race, and it also just is super powerful and like can be super consistent, and is a deck that can go long despite what people think. This is coming from someone who played Boros Convoke a lot, took it to the Atlanta RC, played it to get to my invite to the Atlanta RC. Boros Convoke goes way longer than people think it does. People think, oh, I didn't die on turn 3, game, I'm gonna win this game, and he's like, nope, they're just gonna still outvalue you because all their creatures like make clue tokens, or you tap them to scry and like set up the top of your deck. It literally just has a bunch of like little value pieces built into it that people just don't think about. And there were so many times where I just like, and this is back when I didn't have Novice Inspector, so I had to play like the other cards essentially, and we were still just like, oh, clack my clue token, draw, Convoke for 3 for the Knight Errant. And it's like, all right, cool, I can hit literally everything but my Convoke creatures. It's like, oh look, more value in my hand now. Like this just feels good.
Yeah, I think Boros definitely, I think, gets kind of like the eyes put back on it, where it's like, hey, what are you gonna do over there, buddy? Like they got some nice tools. I think with at least the kind of the success that I had in Standard as well, you would think that like, well, going to Modern, or excuse me, going to Pioneer, where like we have better mana bases presumably, that we would see it kind of get a fair shake in the format now that its absolute worst matchup is been 86th done.
Yeah.
I think also I mean Lotus Field. I mean I hate that deck so much. I hate Lotus Field, dude. It's the most embarrassed that I've ever felt, like playing a deck where I'm like, I know I'm smarter than this, but like I'm panicking and I'm just like, I need to play fast, and I'm playing like an idiot, and I'm like, I can't play this deck. My 2 brain cells are working overtime and they're fighting with each other. I can't have that. That's bad for business.
Your 2 brain cells are fighting for 3rd place.
Yeah, that's kind of the sad part, man. Like it was rough. That was rough, man. Oh my god, that was so rough.
That was me the day I told you that I'm not playing Turtle Storm in Modern. I played one. I played one match with the deck. It wasn't even a league. I played one match, and I was just like, no, no, this is worse than Storm somehow, and more convoluted.
Hmm.
Like at least Storm, I understand. Like I understood how to do it, but it's just like you have to balance your ring activations with your untapping of the Lotus and all these. I'm like, I don't care enough. I just don't care enough. I will play a deck that is subpar to this. If this is the best deck in the format, I will purposely play the subpar deck and not have to think about this deck.
I'd rather play with Ral and Ruby Medallion than Twiddle and Lotus Field.
Yeah, but no, I do think that Pioneer's in a very interesting spot, and I think, like I was saying, I think the biggest issue is that Pioneer hasn't had aggro, and it's Smits for like what over a year now.
Yeah, I think aside from like the super dedicated, like this is the fastest possible an aggro deck can go. I think you're right. There hasn't really been like a true aggro deck in that sense.
Yeah, so like I think the fact that like we have multiple aggro decks coming back into the format, it people aren't realizing what that's going to do to the format. Like people are going to have to play different cards and things like this, and so this will be one of my hot takes where like a lot of people were upset that Phoenix didn't get hit with anything, so Phoenix is now the de facto best deck, right? So if the three best decks were Amalia, Vampires, and Arclight Phoenix, and then two of those decks got banned, theoretically Phoenix should be the best deck, right? It should be taking down all the tournaments. We should be see it being like top eight of top eights, and it's just not because Phoenix still struggles with aggro. Any aggro deck that goes super wide, like Invoke, Mono White Humans, these decks are coming back. Even Angels sometimes is more of a challenge for the deck because they have to, they have the flyers to beat their flyers and then they're gaining life and doing all these things. So it's just like we have these decks now that are putting pressure on the de facto best deck that just weren't in the format before. They didn't have to worry about these decks existing. Like when I played Phoenix, I played two board wipes in the sideboard just for Amalia. I didn't even think about any other creature deck I would run into. It wasn't on my radar. I was like, oh, well, I hope I don't run into humans. Like that's kind of a tough matchup with like Thalia on two and to pump my Thalia into Adeline. And it's just like, no, I don't have to worry about that. I will not see that this tournament. There's no thought that I'm going to run into that kind of deck. Oh man, I hope no one's on Angels. It's kind of a hard matchup because they play flyers that get bigger than my 3/2s. Nope. Never thought that I would run into Angels. Never thought I would run into any of these aggro decks. Never thought I would run into Boros Convoke. Just like, no, these aren't real decks. These decks have been banned because Amalia is playable.
Yeah.
And then it was true. I would go to RCQs that had 0 Amalia players, but also 0 aggro players. Because they just knew they weren't... Like, if there's an Amalia player there and they pair up against them, they're going to lose. Like, could they win? Yes. Obviously, you can theoretically win, right? There's no matchup that is 100% 0 and 100%. Okay? There's no lopsided matchup that lopsided. Magic still has its variance. But when it's, 80-20 and not your favor, why would you purposely queue into a matchup like that?
Mm-hmm. Thing too, kind of funny because I posted a video 2 weeks ago, I guess at this point, a little over 2 weeks now, talking about Greasefang and essentially why it's not really playable in the Pioneer format. And I think with the banning of Amalia, someone actually commented on my video too, saying that like, well, why would I play Obs on Greasefang when I can play Obs on Amalia? And I'm like, yeah, that's partly one of the reasons. And someone actually, that person commented on it and it was basically just like, well, now I can play it. So like I think in Greasefang I've seen people messing around with it and like playing with it, and I mean it definitely looks pretty good. Looks like the way that it did before, and it's still gonna suck losing to it just like it did before. People really had any refined Amalia lists.
So I do think that Greasefang will start to see some play, but I think that it's gonna have the same problem that Greasefang always has, is Arclight Phoenix is still a deck. So people already have like some kind of graveyard hate usually. Like people who are playing graveyard hate already have graveyard hate for the Arclight Phoenix deck, and so now like it also just hits the Greasefang deck. And Greasefang has this problem where it doesn't have a good secondary plan. Like it wasn't like I thought that Amalia was I thought I was building Amalia better in the sense where I had a secondary plan where like if I can't combo off, I'm gonna beat you down, and like the Greasefang deck doesn't have a good secondary plan in my opinion, because it has to dedicate so many slots to the combo, or like being able to mill in, put in Parhelion into the graveyard to set it up type thing. So I think that because of that, um, it struggles with the secondary gameplay where someone just goes, turn to rest in peace, and you're like, okay, cool. Well, now I need to draw my abrupt decay slash whatever answer I have to that, and then set up my combo. And like they've now delayed me by X amount of turns, to where my secondary plan is like, well, I got some like 2-3s out here that, or 3-2s out here that, oh nope, that's fiery impulse, that's dead. Why? Oh nope, that's a fatal push. And like I think that's the biggest problem with the deck is it doesn't have a secondary game plan that's good, and it gets hit by the like Phoenix hate that's still floating around because it's still a good deck.
I can see that. I honestly, I've always kind of thought that like the Greasefang deck and kind of why the later iterations of it kind of started playing the like Sky Sovereign console flagship and the Iseka's Chariot. I think that those were ways where it's like, could you get to 8 mana or whatever it is to hard cast Parhelion? Yeah, but if like that's your secondary game plan, that sucks. But like playing Chariot on 4 and then getting to play like Boat on 5, and then just from that, like all of your other cards that are going to kind of like help you find those pieces are also going to like help you fuel the graveyard. Obviously in this case, like we're kind of having to play against like graveyard hate, but like these cards are going to allow you to like hit your land drops and get to the point where it's like kind of like Tron, where sure you've stopped me from doing the thing on turn 3, but you also haven't killed me. So when we get to turn 7 or turn 8, when I finally get to 7 or 8 mana naturally, I'm going to start throwing haymakers, and you're going to start answering these haymakers where you just kind of sat there and spun your tires. Now, do I think that's going to happen in the format where we expect aggro to be a lot better? No, probably not. It's probably going to have to play a lot more removal. But, I think the secondary game plan is like, okay. Like, it's fine. I think that the top end, like the best case scenario of the deck, is like so high that I'm kind of fine where if we have like this medium-ish secondary game plan where we can also just play to the outs of like, oh, blow up your thing, mill a bunch of cards on your end step, untap, like play my Greasefang, get back my Parhelion, smack you and kill you, sort of thing. So I think it just depends, but as far as like graveyard decks, I definitely don't even think it's like near the best graveyard deck. I think it's just it comes back into the format now that it's the best Abzan deck to play currently.
Yeah, it's the best Abzan deck to play currently, for sure. But I don't, like I said, I agree that I just don't think it's going to be that good as a whole. And I'm kind of curious to see what else comes in and takes its place, or if there's we see a better like mid-range deck of it, or if maybe the Esper version takes over. I know that one keeps floating around with the Rafik.
Yeah. Wait,
So,
Rafine? I'm assuming. Wait.
Rafine, yeah, Rafine, not
Okay.
Rafik.
I was like, on Rafik. I can't even. Rafik the Many? I can't even. Oh, that's the double strike thing from Alara.
Yeah, get the bat one. That also gets exalted.
Yeah.
And it's the weird double strike where as long as you attack with one creature, give that creature double strike.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember listening to that card.
Whoever it is, someone said that like Con QR5 PV actually commented on my like why nobody plays like Greasefang video and was talking about playing like the Esper version of the deck. I think they were playing it more on Explorer, but they definitely were talking about like the Esper build of the deck. So I mean, it's out there.
I said when the event that I got my invite to DC, that was my first round was against that deck, and I was playing Amalia, so it did not feel close in my opinion. Like game 2, I lost game 2, but I was literally like one turn away or just like one draw better, and I would have won that game. Like he had to continuously disrupt me and like still like try to buy time, and like it definitely felt like the old versions of Tron versus Blue Light Control, where Tron's just like, draw a card. I'm gonna play this one. I got a counterspell? Okay. I'm gonna play this one. It has a cast trigger. And Blue White's over there's like, alright, if I draw these perfect, like next cards, 3 cards perfectly, I can like maybe have a 20% chance to win this game. And like that's kind of what it felt like with me, where it was like, well, I'm gonna play like a good games plan still, and this is like well, here's all this stuff you have to interact with and deal with. Do you have all the answers? And like he lined up perfectly with all the answers. And then game 3 was just like, I had the thing on 3. Do you have an answer? No. Cool. I'm gonna combo off. I'm gonna reveal my artifact. I'm gonna reveal Aether Flux Twice. I'm gonna keep that on top. I'm gonna go to 83 life. Your go. Good games. It's like, yeah, like it's kind of what it felt like. Like, I'm sorry I'm the bad guy, but I'm also not sorry because I want this invite. Like, so.
I thought you were saying that like they had their combo on turn 3. It's like I have my combo on turn 3. Do you have any responses? Like, yeah, I'm gonna go to my turn. I'm gonna combo on my turn 3.
I did that game 1. They got the Parhelion on game 1 on turn 3, and I was like, yeah. I was like, how much damage is that? They're like, it was like 15 damage, 15 or 16 damage altogether. I was like, yeah, go to 3. I was like, end step or my turn, play Amalia or play life gain creature, play Amalia, trigger Wild Growth Blocker. I'm gonna do this until I blow up the board, and I'm also gonna gain a bunch of life back. And then it was just like a couple turns of me swinging, and then they finally conceded. I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, that's cool. That was cool. You did like 15 damage. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
I gained that. I gained 4 times that amount of life. That's cool.
You did 15 damage to my life total. I did 15 damage to your soul. Like,
Yeah,
who's the real winner here?
exactly. It definitely like Amalia is definitely a bad guy. Don't get me wrong. Like I don't think she deserved like that deck didn't deserve to stay in the format for sure. And it definitely was holding down a lot of decks in the format, as we can see. That's evident now, where we have a whole bunch of aggro decks popping out of nowhere because they could finally get played. We have people dusting off their decks. They're like, oh my god, this is playable again.
I,
So
I think Pioneer, like, I think a nice way to, like, kind of, like, segue and wrap it up, and something I wish I would have said, like, in my video, where I think as a whole, like, the Pioneer format kind of wins from this, while I think, and we've talked about it before, where maybe they could have gone a little bit deeper, maybe they could have gotten something from Phoenix, whatever it is, whether you don't want it to be a deck or you want to take away, some of the explosiveness or something from the deck, whether you wanted to take away, Nykthos or something like from mono green to prevent like mono green from from having a format where we had blue white Rakdos, Izzet, and mono green being like the top 4 decks to play, whatever. Even though I think the texture of all those decks have kind of changed since kind of this era of Amalia and Rakdos. I think Pioneer overall is kind of a winner for this, and the player base at large kind of gets a win from this, even with, again, could have had more bannings, sure, but I think these ones were just easy slam dunks. They were super impactful. I mean, they knocked out clean the 2 best decks in the format. Now, Rakdos midrange is Rakdos midrange now. It's not Vampires versus midrange. And, we go back to, Fable the Mirrorbreaker being the best, like, midrange card instead of playing a unplayable 2-mana uncommon from Ixalan and then a pretty sweet Vampire payoff as well.
yeah. I do think that these were like kind of obvious, clearly like what they should do bannings. I am a little worried about how consistently good mono green will be moving forward. I know you and I both have talked about wanting to play, like we're going to be playtesting that for, RCQ prep. So I am legitimately worried about where the mono green stands, because like if it's just consistent enough, that's going to be a giant problem, because like we've seen the explosiveness that is mono green and what it can do. So like if that's what we're gonna see, like that's not gonna be a healthy format again. That being said, I have seen mono green like just struggle because I've played it before, so it struggles. Pretty much I've learned that any deck that looks really good on paper, just play it. You realize how terrible it is because you don't have that kind of luck.
I'm trying to find. There's someone, Bobby Fortanley on YouTube, where I stumbled on one of his videos, and this is kind of nauseating. Like I'll say this is like my last piece for Pioneer, and then we can move on to Modern if you want, or keep talking about it. But they were playing a 80 card Yorion Green Devotion deck.
Yes, I've seen this. I've
Oh
seen
my
this
god!
monstrosity.
Like Fecund Green Shell and all these other cards that like kind of help you to like dig and find Nykthos. I was like, this deck, like I am so tempted to play this because I think that this would be like for someone like me where we play Modern Pioneer. I'm gonna be planning on getting into Standard later, but just like oh man, like remembering Yorion in Modern where people are playing like 4-color Money Pile, and then people just like eye twitching, having an aneurysm, and then like banging their head across their keyboard for 10 minutes, like while mono green comboed. It's just like being able to play both those cards in like the same deck, and it actually be, I think at least a debate.
Plausible.
Yeah, like it's plausible to play. It looks so cool. Like I'm in for playing cool things, so it's like why not play the deck that I think is like a solidly a tier, at least a tier 1.5 deck, that also gets to play like a companion that's not an elk, and then also just do a bunch of things. It just looks so cool. I love it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I do. I do want to see what that deck is. Like I've seen it float around. I want to take a look at it and compare it to like the 60 card mono green. Obviously, I think there's going to be differences and things like that. So I'm kind of curious to see the differences there. I am interested to see overall what we end up landing on for DC, because I know we've talked about like maybe we just run back Phoenix because we both know how to play that deck overly play the deck relatively well, and I kind of understand the sideboarding. I do think if I was to take Phoenix to DC, I would have some number of Thing in the Ice is probably main, just because it's a good blocker early on, and it's good against like the Gavoke decks and things like that, being able to spam a bunch of cantrips early on and then just leave it set up on one with, an opt consider or removal spell or whatever in my hand, where it's just like, all right, man, whenever you want to go for it, let me know, because I'm stopping it.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that like that might be the correct build to work like Phoenix right now. I know they're playing the Thing in the Ice in the sideboard. Like I said, we want to try out mono green. I want to look at the food decks because I don't know if they're real or not. In the sense of like, yes, the deck exists for sure. No one thinks it doesn't. Is it good enough to compete? I also kind of want to look at playing control. I'm a sucker for playing control, and like it's an open deck format. Theoretically, I should be good in that format because I'll be able to mulligan more aggressively. It's like, oh, okay, you're playing aggro. Yeah, no temporary lockdown. Shuffle, 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 shuffle. Temporary lockdown. Let's go. We're gonna keep this hand. So I am curious to see what is going to be good, what's not going to be good through our playtesting, because I think it's a very wide open format now.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be pretty enjoyable. I'm looking forward to the process and getting to look forward to playing in my first regional championship, and obviously both hoping to do well, qualify for the Pro Tour. That's the ultimate goal. Would love to win, but I'm
we have our expectations, we have our realistic expectations, and we have what we're actually going to do.
Yeah, the floor is trying to win one, like play a match and win it, is like just get the first one, because I have a feeling that I'm going to literally be shitting my pants while I sit down, where I'm like, regional championship, all these players should be really good, and there's going to be a person like me where it's like, yeah, I went to an 8-person RCQ and like the most competitive deck there was like blue white spirits. And I was playing it. So so that's kind of what I'm, obviously the expectation in any tournament that I go to is just like my opponent has a lot of potential to just be a lot smarter than me, know what's going on, play the best that you can. So I will definitely be at least of that mindset, like when I go, even if I get the inkling at some point where I'm like, I don't know if my opponent knows what's going on, sort of thing.
It's always better to overestimate your opponent than to underestimate your opponent. Never assume you're the smartest person sitting down.
Yep. It's easy to assume not being the smartest person in the room, for sure.
No, it is going to be exciting. I'm hoping to do better than I did last time, which, I mean, it's hard to like say I did super bad at Atlanta either, because like I lost by winning in for day 2, so it wasn't like I went like 0-3 drop and just like did not do anything. So like it's hard to sit there and say, oh, I was bad at like Atlanta, but like I think that going in, like the problem is I want to play Phoenix because you have all these options, but also Phoenix is a deck where like I have all these options. I've cast 3 Treasure Cruises and still have 0 Phoenixes in my graveyard, or somehow seen any Ledger Shredders.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, all right, cool. Like I have all these options, but it does nothing.
Yeah, it's definitely I just the times I've played Phoenix, the amount that I've goldfished with it, the amount that I've like actually played games with it on Moto and paper and stuff like that. There's just something about it where I'm like, this just feels good. Is it a deck that there's probably like one or two people that will make the top 8 at the regional championship with Arc-Light Phoenix. Am I going to be one of those people? If I run hot enough, maybe. But I also think it's like a good enough deck where like if the goal is, at least for me, is like let's try to qualify for the Pro Tour. That's like the ultimate goal, the ultimate side goal from obviously short of winning the actual tournament and stuff. But just qualify for the Pro Tour. I think it's a deck that is definitely at least good enough to where you're gonna have game against everything in the meta game. You just have some draws that your opponents can't handle, and sometimes you're probably gonna look like a very anemic, like blue red, like control deck basically. But I don't know. I think it's just the top end is worth it enough to kind of deal with the mid to really bad draws.
Yeah, no, I think it's still a good deck, and I think I can see that definitely being something you end up landing on and taking. And I don't know if I will as well or not. The good news is the deck is super cheap now because the most expensive card of the deck got reprinted.
Yay. You want to try to move on to modern?
Yeah, let's move on to modern.
Well, hold on.
So
I got an idea. So I'm gonna do something that's really wild and crazy right now. Okay.
Okay.
In the middle of this video, I'm actually gonna replug our channels again because I think it's super important that you guys support the channel. If you want to keep seeing our beautiful faces, every week or most weeks, whatever the case may be, subscribe to my channel, Karate23. Subscribe to Randy's channel, Modern with Randy. Show some support. Let's try to get Randy to like 100 subscribers, like, because I think that'd be just like an awesome kind of like goal to hit and like aim for, especially before like the regional. That'd be kind of sweet.
It would be. We're trying. We're slowly growing. I'm probably going to start focusing a lot more on Pioneer too, just because I think it's the more open format. Like 100% modern's not solved by any means. I don't think that I think that Boros and Mardu Energy are probably I think Boros Energy is probably the best deck. I don't think Mardu is that good. I think that yes, playing Thoughtseize, playing Bowmaster, playing the enchantment that you love.
Goblin Bombardment.
No, the other one, the black one.
Oh, Chthonian Nightmare.
Chthonian Nightmare. I think those are all good cards, but I think Boros is just so much more consistent with what it's doing that it's better. And I'm sure people are going to argue with me, or people are going to say, "Oh no, whatever is better." And don't get me wrong, Mardu looks better in the mirror sometimes, but also it takes so much damage to itself because of all the fetch lands and shock lands it has to play, or really all the shock lands it has to play that it can't get basics. Where it's just so much worse, I think, than watching Boros go. You can so easily watch Boros just go turn one, one drop, two drop, three drop, and take 2 damage max, and have an impressive board set you'd have to answer. I've watched Mardu do the same thing where it's oh, turn one, Thoughtseize, alright, cool, you didn't advance the board state in any way, shape, or form. Turn 2, Bowmaster, okay, cool, I'm still playing threats. You played a Bowmaster, you got rid of one of my threats, cool, I played 2 more threats. This doesn't feel good to me. It feels worse every time I watch it. It just kind of feels worse. So I do think that's probably the pseudo best deck of the format that could easily be beaten. That deck doesn't just auto pressure everything. But I do think that modern has, for the most part, has been solved in the sense of we know which decks are good unless something is breaking out or doing something that is different or whatnot. It's hard to sit here and talk about it as to where Pioneer has all these decks that are coming back into the format that people have really just forgotten existed. People forgot Boros Convoke existed. People forgot, all these aggro decks existed. People forgot that, these mid-range decks are existing that aren't Rakdos. And, but I do think that Modern's in an interesting place because Grief got banned, and, watching what Goryo's is evolving into is kind of interesting to see what they're going to do. Watching Live Again finally die because I had to watch my Rhinos die is fun to me. Watching Monobrak Necro still be mid is interesting. They lost Grief, and I don't think that deck got any better or worse. I think it just stayed mid.
What do you mean? There's something euphoric about saying telling your opponent, "I'm gonna draw 15 cards," and it's oh, but you lost 15 life. Even if I don't have a Shieldred in play, I'm just gonna Soul Spike you 4 times and kill you.
That was I think the thing that made me realize the most that I didn't care for Necro was when my opponent in the top 15 cards of their deck Soul Spiked me 4 times. I'm on Jeskai control, and then I stabilized. I stabilized at 2 life. And I was just okay, cool. Like, you put me to 2. I think I played Fetch Land, got basic, and then cast Flage, went back up to 4, and I was like, I'm gonna stabilize. I hope you know this. Like, this Flage is eventually coming from the graveyard, and will just stabilize the game by itself. And that's literally what happened. We cast like 4 Flages essentially that game, and just stabilized from that because they can't do the last 2 damage. I was like, yeah, you have no other burn spells. You have nothing else that's gonna like. I have to make sure Shieldred doesn't hit the field. That is my only card I have to counter for the rest of the game. Thank you. Like, you made this very easy. And then as I just held up counter magic until like Shieldred, no. What about this? No. I'm gonna recast Flage. I'm gonna go up to 7.
Isn't Modern a great format?
It's a wonderful
I'm glad
format.
we enjoy it. Now that, of course, since you just decided to go full bore into it, Randy, you didn't even give me a chance to set the story. It gives a little bit of flavor to the 5 people watching right now.
There's no flavor. Nadu got banned that should have been banned 50 plus days ago.
Oh yeah.
And for some reason, Grief got banned because it's unfun to get double griefed or triple griefed on like turn 1, turn 2. Man, if only it was also unfun when Red Black Scam was the best deck in the format.
I remember. Do you think that like it's unfun because now so few people are doing it? They're like, well, if a lot of people are doing it, it must mean it's a lot of fun. So like we're doing a good job. Everyone just loves getting like double thought seized on turn 1. Like that's amazing, and they're getting beat down by a 4/3. Like this is great. Like we finally created like the perfect Modern format. Like isn't that great?
You know, I just don't. I don't know. Their entire argument of like Grief isn't fair. We shouldn't be doing this. One Ring, you're doing good, buddy. Keep selling packs. Like, I'm just like, what? Okay. So I'm gonna be of the minority. I don't think that the ring should get banned. I will preface this, like, I already own 4 rings. I bought them before they were $100 because I bought 4 of the boxes, like everyone should have done.
No, go ahead, keep talking. I'm just gonna smoke my imaginary cigar.
um, I own 4 rings. They get banned tomorrow. I'll just play a different deck. I'm not too worried about it. I'll just go back to playing Deluge and Control. It's fine.
No, I'll just go back to like playing money piles all day because I'm fancy pants Rich McGee over here.
I wish. If I was Rich McGee, I would be playing Boros. I was stupid enough not to buy Ocelots when they were $20 because I don't think it's a $40 or $50 fucking card.
You're right. It's gonna be a $70 card now.
Don't remind me.
Yay! Thank you. Yeah, modern's modern for sure. I think I'm more in love with Frog now that Nadu is gone than I was before.
I love Frog, but I need to get my my Goryo's Vengeance.
Yeah, I think there's some people that there's someone particularly in like my comments that was like WotC just killed like my $800 deck, whatever, and then I think like Dylan Ham from like the Apex. Well, we know him from the Apex series. He actually went to the NRG like the last week that Nadu was legal, made top 8 in that event, and then immediately like 5-0'd like the same day that like Nadu got banned, or like the day after that Nadu was banned with a version of like Goryo's Vengeance. We know that the deck is notably weaker because I think every deck that was just like, I'm going to free Thoughtseize to clear the way before I cast like my broken spell, whether it's I get to Living End and put 20 power to play and then also Thoughtseize you amicably at the top of your deck, or I'm going to clear the way so I can either get back an Ulamog and annihilate your entire board, or get an Atraxa and draw 8 cards while also having a 7/7 play.
Yeah.
Pretty fair.
I do think that the Goryo's deck is not dead. I think that it did lose its power, but I think this is a blessing in disguise. So I think that the best part about this deck is I think this deck can now play a little bit more control, a little bit more removal because of this. I also think that they don't have to play Tainted Indulgence anymore. You can play the card that's sitting on my desk here, Faithful Mending. I think that's a better card. But it's a blue-white card, so it's terrible if you're trying to pitch it to Grief. That's why I think Tainted Indulgence was played so much more, was because of, like, also arguably Tainted Indulgence drew 2 and only discarded 1. Faithful Mending you have to draw 2, discard 2, but also it's Flashback, which is, like, kind of big in the sense of, like, I think you can afford to play, like, maybe 3 Tainted Indulgence, 4 Frogs as your, like, main discard outlets. And I think, or, 3 Faithful Mending, 4 Frogs as, like, your main discard outlets, and I think that you'll be okay with the deck, and then you just kind of play more of a, like, control-y version of the deck, essentially, and I think that you'll be doing well still. I also think it's just going to depend on, like, if Solitude becomes more playable. Like, because right now Solitude's kind of trash. Like, it's not doing anything. Like, Solitude's not good against any particular deck in the format, and, like, the quote-unquote best thing you can do with Solitude is, like, stop a Through the Breach type thing. It's like, hey, cool, you gave them 15 plus life, so yes, you didn't die this turn, but you just gave them 12 more turns to do what they were doing.
Yep.
So, good for you.
Notably, also another One Ring deck too.
Oh yeah, the Through the Breach.
Yep.
So hot take, I think that we should put the One Ring into Goria's. Look, if the top 8 isn't just 4 rings in every deck, is it really a format?
No, the frog is basically the ring, because hopefully you're going to turn it sideways and draw a bunch of cards, and your opponent is going to lose the life instead.
Why can't I do both?
See, if you think about it, the frog is essentially the One Ring, because it has power and toughness. So it's the One Ring, except it has power and toughness. It has activated abilities that don't cause you to lose life. It only draws 1 card. It costs 2 colored mana instead of 4 mana, and your opponent loses the life. So it's basically the One Ring.
So I'm trying to play. I should play 4 of both.
Yeah, you should play 4 in both. Dakota's Stone Cold Lock of the Century of the Week. Play 4 frog, play 4 ring, because it's like playing 8 rings.
Exactly.
And if you play Karn, it's like playing 8 frogs too.
Listen, man, I'm just trying to figure out how I can put 4 frogs and 4 flages in the same deck.
See, I'm the one that gets called a cornball for all this stuff, and then you say things like that.
I'm gonna figure it out.
God, you can go ahead and figure it out over there. I'm gonna figure out how I can somehow put the 4 rings in my Izzet Phoenix deck and not get DQ'd.
Well, I mean, you can play Izzet Phoenix in Modern.
Yeah, never mind. I'll play Buried Alive. I'll play the Buried Alive version. It's like Ritual into Manamorphose into Buried Alive, put in 3 Phoenix. Turn 2, bang. Get them.
Still die.
Still die.
Still die to just everything else in the format.
You're no fun.
Look, you can do that on turn 2 if I can on turn 3 just Through the Breach for 15/15 creature with Annihilator 6.
My god. R.I.P. Modern.
Do you well?
Land of the free and former home of the Nadu. I mean, like, I think what people are going to do in Modern and kind of what is going to be the thing now, because I don't think the ring is going to survive. I know you like the ring, you think it's fine. I think that so far any of the cards that they've decided they're like, oh, we're going to keep an eye on these things, is essentially like, it survives this list, it's very likely to get banned on the next one. I think the ring is going to be there just because I think the more patterns we see where people are like, play the One Ring, get protection, like draw a bunch of cards, like do a thing, and then like now your opponent's like playing from underneath the ring where they're gonna have to like top deck answers, and you're drawing 3, 4, 5 cards a turn, and then in the case for like Jeskai, you Teferi, bounce your ring, and then replay it, and your opponent's just lost all hope at that point. It's like, yeah, I'm at like 6, but I have ring protection again. I have a full grip. I'm going to get back Flage. I'm going to just absolutely decimate you. You're going to get dog walked by this somehow like second or maybe even first best like elemental in this Titan cycle of cards. I don't know. I can see where the One Ring play patterns are problematic. That said, I also implore everybody to play as much of the One Ring as they can before December 16th in the unlikely case that it is banned.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it gets banned. So we talked about this before the podcast started,
Mm.
where I said that the ring has been in the format for like a year now, right, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little longer. Um, and when it first came out, people were playing a ton of it, and like, oh, we gotta ban this card, ban it, ban it, ban it, ban it, ban it, and then it's like dipped off. Like the ring stopped seeing so much play. It was played in some decks, but there wasn't prevalent. What kind of like went underground. No one talked about ring. No one talked about ring. No one talked about ring. MH3 came out. Ring sees a lot of play. And you ban, 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 ban. And I was like, well, let's see what happens because we saw this happen when it first got printed, where everyone was like, I'm jamming 4 rings. You're playing mono red burn. 4 rings. 4 rings. It draws cards.
Dude, speaking of like jamming a card in their deck, you remember when Burn played Luris in the sideboard and started playing Baubles? I remember
Yes.
that. I remember those days.
I So I think the biggest thing I remember about Burn is when Spike would yell at every Burn player alive, where it's like, just play the Luris! Your 15th sideboard card doesn't matter! And they're like, we can't! And he's like, you're idiots.
Oh
That
my
is what
god.
I truly remember about Burn. Also, I'm in like 1 or 2 different Burn groups that hasn't died yet for some reason, and it's cute that they keep going, do you guys think we're playable now? And it's like, no man, Flage is still playable. Play just a card that sees play in more than one deck. Sit back down.
Main deck Hollowed Moonlight and Boros Burn.
Yeah, I mean they're gonna need it.
Wait, no. It only exiles it if it hasn't been cast. Never mind, it's getting cast. Back to the drawing
Oh
board.
yeah. Play path.
I'm going to scoop up my metaphorical cards here, my imaginary cards here, and shuffle up
Yeah,
for game two.
yeah. No, I do think that modern's an interesting place. I think we're in a not a weird place, but a weird place as a whole to where like what are we doing as a whole as the format goes on? Is the ring just too powerful and needs to be banned? Or is it one of these things where we need to let the dust settle, see what people are going to be doing, what's going to be happening? Or is it, is it like one of these things where like the ring spikes up in popularity and then, in 2, 3 months from now, or like, when we get to like November and people are like, how do you have the ring in your deck? What are you doing? So like I do think we're in like this weird spot where like is it going to be where the ring is everywhere for like the next 2 months? Maybe it drops off. We saw it happen when it first came out. It was super popular. Everyone was jamming 4 of it in pretty much any deck that could play it. So basically decks that played mana, and then it just stopped. We realized that wasn't the best case. We're in another format where jamming ring in every deck seems good, but it's very easy. We can curve back down to where ring sees play in a couple decks.
Eh,
And no one knows the correct answer. No one knows what's going to happen. Maybe Duskborn comes out and somehow just demolishes the reason to play Ring.
man, I hope that Boros Energy and Mardu Energy pick up the One Ring and keep the One Ring. I know that they're kind of playing with it right now. I hope they keep it because then there's no way the One Ring survives after that.
I think the correct the build of Boros plays the One Ring. Um, I'm on the I'm on the same avenue as Young Dingo when he was like kind of the first person I saw to really pick up the ring and put it in Boros, and it just looks good. Like it because the Boros aggro deck is like this weird thing where like it has an explosive early game, decent mid game, but then like your late game you can flounder really hard if like they just go board wipe, answer your flage. All right, what are you doing? And it's like, well, we're gonna stay in the One Ring and start drawing about 5 cards a turn. That's
Pray
what we're
gets
going to do.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably going to be the biggest like question mark. I think we could probably agree that like the Boros Energy and the Mardu Energy decks are probably going to be like the early conversations of like, okay, is Mardu now better than the Boros builds of the deck? Is the grindy element, and the potential extra life loss worth having a little bit harder of a mana base, maybe a little bit more complicated. You're thinking a little bit more about like your fetch lands on the early turn, or is just a straight Boros version better? We get right to the point. You're able to play Blood Moon in your deck, which is still good in 2024, where you can just win games of Magic. Playing a Blood Moon, and you get to kind of play this one out of nowhere potentially on turn 2, where your opponent's going to be looking to get like a surveil land anyway on turn 1, maybe to kind of help their draw, and they're going to be stuck getting a fetch land. Or, if they just played their surveil land from their hand, they're fucked. They're fucked.
Yeah, I will say that like Blood Moon is a annoying card to deal with. That's for sure. Like it's one of those cards where it's just like, doesn't feel good. I'm gonna force it. I'm gonna force a negate this. Force a negation this. I'm gonna pitch this relevant blue spell to make sure that I can play the game the rest of the game. Thank you,
Give me
opponent.
that fawn. Yeah. So yeah, and I think Ocelot Pride having a lot to do with Ocelot Pride Guide of Souls just being like the brutal 1-2 punch for the deck, where you need early interaction for either one of them. Probably the Ocelot Pride, but it's like a rare like 2 1 mana white creatures that you answer one, the other one's still really good.
Yeah.
And it's not very it's clear that like I have to have 2 removals for these things, but then again you have like the Raptors, and then of course they just have more copies of those cards to begin with. Ajani is an absolutely house in the format. And if you play the Mardu versions too, like you get rid of them, like cool, Chthonian Nightmare is just going to take tokens and then just kind of loop these things, and Ajani's going to like blast you for a ton of damage, or we're going to get a bunch of Ocelot Prides back and just again continue to loop, get energy, put pressure on you. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, the deck is just super powerful, super consistent. Um, that being said, I obviously can get beaten. Can get beat. We're not seeing Boros aggro just take every top 8 all 8 decks. Like it's not. It's very consistent, but it's at the end of the day, it still is an aggro deck. Still is like a mid range aggro deck. Like it can be beaten. We've seen it get beaten before. It's not this end all. And yeah, it has like the snowbally effects, but like it's definitely a deck where if you can weather the storm on like turn 2, turn 3, you can stabilize against it. Not relatively easily, but relatively easily. And it does still matter on like their top decks and what they're doing the rest of the game and what you're doing. We see it with any kind of deck that can stabilize against it. So it's definitely like we definitely have a tier 1 where it's going to be the 2 energy decks, some of the Eldrazi decks, Storm, um, Jeskai Control or Jeskai Energy, Jeskai One Ring, whatever you want to call it, are all kind of like vying for the top place, and we're just gonna see what takes over essentially, or what makes its way to the top and stays at the top.
Yeah, I think a pretty safe bet. I think that the format's not nearly as wide open as something that was like Pioneer, because I think Pioneer just like I think we've opened the floodgates for a bunch of different decks to like see play again. And I think modern, we have Boros Energy, we have Mardu Energy, the energy decks, whatever. They're going to be the best decks in the format. It's going to be like probably who can knock off the energy deck, and I think there's a lot of really neat and interesting decks. I think there's some decks that obviously got worse that are finding ways to innovate to stay relevant in the format. And in the case of the Living End deck, RIP, sorry, not sorry. Your deck was terrible to play against. Literally the worst.
Yeah, I'm not sad that they're knocked off. My Rhinos got knocked off. They deserve to get knocked off. Yeah, I do think, like you said, I think the format's still wide open. I know I made the comment where like I'll probably do more Pioneer coverage because I think it's more open, and I kind of mean that in the sense like there's so many decks sprouting up, or like we kind of have like a baseline of like what the 20th decks you're going to see going into a tournament. Obviously, that waxes, wanes depending on what your local meta is, what your play patterns are, your players, what the budget is of those players, all these 30,000 different factors that like why a player is playing the deck they're playing. But we kind of have like this like 20th list of decks where like if I played against any one of these 20, I would not be surprised at an RCQ. And then same thing where like with Pioneer we have kind of like 3 decks that we think we're going to see an RCQ, like if they were still going on. Like I bet you like Phoenix will be there. I bet you some kind of like aggro Convoke / Slickshot deck's going to be there, and I actually don't have a third one I would say for sure would be there. So there's so much more like wide openness of like what's going to be putting up numbers, doing consistently work and things like that as to Modern's kind of solved in the sense of like you kind of know what you're going to see. Now, is there going to still be breakout decks that are doing well and like surprising people? 100%. I'm not going to be surprised if we see something like come out of nowhere. Like maybe there is the Primal Energy deck comes out and starts doing well because no longer has to worry about Nadu that was going to kneecap it every time it played against it. Maybe that deck starts doing well. Maybe we have insert some kind of different variant like Hollow One starting to see play and doing well because it knows it doesn't have to face Nadu where it was an auto loss. That deck's doing well. That kind of came out of nowhere. We have these different decks that are kind of like vying and coming out of the woodwork still to still do well and still put up numbers, but we do have like this kind of like set 20ish decks that like you're gonna see almost all the time. If you look at the top 16 from a modern challenge, you're like, oh, these are like the 16 decks I expected to see. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, you want to know something funny about like the Hollowed One deck?
Oh god.
There was I was watching one of the, I think it was like Mox Dragon events or whatever. It was like Honor Agdas's like and Magic Channel whatever on YouTube, and one of the matches was like some like Naya Aggro or something like that, or it was like some kind of like it was like Hollowed One versus like some kind of like Rakdos or like Mardu like aggro deck or whatever. I don't know, but like so the uh, Hollowed One player played a Bora or a Bowmaster, and then like went to their turn, drew for their third turn, played a land, and then went to go play the Burning Inquiry to make each player draw 3 cards and discard 3. And as soon as they played, I'm like, dude, Burning Inquiry is like so good when you have a Bowmaster. Holy shit! And then his opponent, like, I really wasn't paying attention because I was just like, oh my god, like that's insane. Just like plays Bowmaster, ping your Bowmaster, and then like their Bowmaster got to deal the 3 damage to them when they Burning Inquiry.
Jeez,
Justice.
that's so good. I do think
Justice.
Burning Inquiry is like this weird card too, where it can just like there's almost an argument to be made for like if you just go turn one Burning Inquiry, you can completely destroy your opponent's hand. Because like,
Oh
oh
yeah.
wow, I discarded your 3 lands. Good luck. Hope you draw lands. You're not playing the game anymore. Like I might not be doing anything super like threatening. Like maybe I'm gonna play like another Goyf on turn 2 now, and like here's 3 damage a turn. But it's just like this is 3 damage and you have no lands. Deal with me. I'm a
That
threat.
that's how at least that's how it felt like back in the day where you just like Burning Inquiry on one and you're like staring at your hand that has like 2 lands in it, and I'm like, I hope when I go up to 10 cards, I don't just discard both of these lands and then something relevant, and then you go and flip over the cards. It's like, oh cool, fetch land, like Thoughtseize, awesome. And then I look at my hand and it's like, this is garbage. Like I can't do anything with this. Even if I draw a land, this hand sucks. Like,
I was lucky enough. I played against last weekend. I played an RCQ, and I played against like the Hollow One Nethergoyf deck, and they Burning Inkle me a couple times, and I'm on Jeskai control, and I was like looking at my hand, I'm like, I got like a board wipe and some like removal spells. I was like, I really need you not to hit this board wipe. And like lucky enough, like the one time he finally did hit the board wipe, I'd also drawn a second board wipe. Like, oh thank God, we were dead on the next turn if we didn't do this.
if we weren't elite gamers, we would have died.
Exactly. Look, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. That's all I know.
I've heard stories.
I am very adamant that it's better to be lucky than good.
Can confirm. You need to get a little lucky in this game. So when you can get a lot of lucky, it's pretty sweet, beautiful thing.
Oh yeah. Look, that's how I'm gonna win DC. I'm just gonna get a little lucky and play, moderately okay.
We're gonna play okay and lucky enough to win a lottery ticket, and that's how we're gonna win the regional.
Yeah.
Well, Randy, I think we covered quite a bit for both formats. Is there anything you want to throw in about Modern Pioneer, or just any thoughts that you've had? What's been going on this week?
No, I mean, honestly, the only thought I have is that it's already the end of August, and I don't have a deck picked out for TC, so that worries me somewhat. I have a lot of testing I need to get done, and I'm really bad at procrastination, so we'll see how well this plays out for me.
Well, hey, I don't know. I think some people probably had decks picked, but like only if they didn't get banned for the in the announcement. So I think other people are going to be kind of making that decision as well.
I mean, I definitely had that plan where like I definitely had the I was just gonna take Amalia if they're like no ban or like no changes. I was all right, cool. We're gonna run back Amalia then. But like I definitely thought that like Amalia Soren's gonna get hit. Like like those like there's pretty much like that 1% chance of like how can Wizards fuck this up, and they choose the 1% out to fuck it up. And so we were prepared for that. But like there's too many decks I want to take. There's too many decks I shouldn't take that I'm going to try to take. So we'll see what actually happens, what I actually do. Um, which I mean, you'll be there with me anyway, playtesting and pretending that we know what we're doing.
Yeah, we'll be like, yeah, this seems like really great, and we're just like two cavemen like throwing rocks at like at paintings and shit, and like just, hmm, this
Listen,
rock.
man, I'm just trying to get lucky enough to where I hit two rocks together and make a spark. Yeah, that's that's the level of luck we're trying to pull off here.
Hey, how come
Let-
no one ever thought to put Bowmaster in their deck? It's so good against Izzet Phoenix.
Although nothing will I don't know if was it you, me, and Andrew were like, why is no one playing what is that stupid red spell?
uh,
You guys have real top card to your library should reveal an artifact, 4 mana, red.
oh, Madcap Experiment,
You're like, why
yeah,
is no one playing Madcap Experiment and Rhinos? You could just block the game out while making Rhinos. It's great. And
yeah.
then you read Starless Agent is an artifact. Like, oh thank God I didn't register this. I almost did.
Dude, we were so hyped. We're like, that's fucking brilliant. For like 3, 4 Madcap Experiment, and then just like 2 like Platinum Empyreans in the sideboard. That's gonna be so awesome. And then just, oh, your best cascade. Well, what are your best cascade spells? Is an
Is an
artifact.
artifact. Dude, we thought we had broke the format. We were so and I'm waiting for us to do that in Pioneer. We're just gonna play something like this just breaks the format, and then we're gonna play round one and just play against an aggro deck and go, oh, we don't have a way to be aggro. Fuck, we did not
Absolutely,
think this.
absolutely do not register Platinum Empyrean into your Pioneer deck. You'll be very sad when you get DQ'd as soon as you do your combo.
Yeah, but no,
Oh man.
I'm honestly I'm not worried about Pioneer, but I'm worried in the sense of like what am I taking?
Yeah, I get it. I understand. Oh, I'm kind of in the same boat. I think I'm pretty like set on like I'm gonna be playing like quite a bit of different decks, but I think I'm gonna end up just picking what I think is gonna be the probably the best deck for the format and just try to get
Yeah,
comfortable playing with it.
take the best deck in the format, learn how to play it, learn how to play the mirror match, and go from there.
Yeah, I think that's gonna end up being the plan. I think I'm solidly between like 2 or 3 different decks, and it's just gonna be about like which one do I feel more comfortable, like how that deck loses. Am I more comfortable losing that way or this way, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, realistically, one, two, probably like 4 decks. I'm realistically like leading towards, like with Phoenix being like the obvious choice of like I know how to play it. I think I can play it pretty confidently. I think that I know how to play the mirror match. I think I just don't like the mirror match of Phoenix as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
I think the mirror match of Phoenix is kind of trash in the sense of like it feels a lot about like who gets luckier, and I know there's skill base involved in that too, but like of all the mirror matches I played in like the RCQs and stuff, it all came down to this luck. Like my opponent had an active Ashiok on turn 3, activated her 3 times before I could answer her. She milled over 12 irrelevant cards. I played Ashiok on turn 5, hit 2 Phoenixes off the first activation. It's just like I got luckier. Like there was no skill involved in either one in that interaction. I got luckier. He didn't hit any relevant spells. I hit 2 Phoenixes in the top 4 cards. Like, and
It
that's what that matchup feels like,
it
in my
looks
opinion.
yeah. It looks like I think one of the Pioneer challenges that Izzet Phoenix. I don't know if it won, but I think it made like the top 4. Probably
Mhm.
won. And it was playing an Ashiok in the main,
Yeah.
which I think makes sense. It's to me that card for Phoenix is like playing Surgical Extraction in like any modern deck where I'm like I feel like I should just always bring this in. Like they play Magic cards, like I'm sure exiling the graveyard's good. Their cards literally go there. How bad could it be to exile it? And I get to
Hmm.
mill myself, so like, how
Yeah.
bad could it be? You know?
I do think that the perfect 60 has not been figured out for Phoenix as it stands right now with the new meta.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's gonna be like the biggest thing is who figures out the best 60 to take, and like the 15 is gonna be the biggest. Like the whole deck needs reworked, I think, and obviously like you're still playing like, oh, we're still playing 4 ops, 4 Thoughtseize, 4 ops, 4 considers. You know, like there's a lot like there's like probably like 40-ish cards that are for sure thought like this is the 40 we're playing in the deck, and then we have like 20 cards to mess around with, or maybe it's like 10 cards, 5 cards we have to mess around with. But like the deck is definitely locked in for overall of like what you're playing. But those flex shots are going to be the difference between the player who goes 0-3 and the player who makes top 32. And
Okay.
that's definitely what Phoenix is going to be. It's going to be who. It's literally going to be who is a smarter Phoenix player. It's definitely going to be like I was smarter because I put like these two cards in my main deck and these 3 cards in my sideboard, and that's why I'm in the top 32.
Yeah, you're probably right. I could see that being a thing where, you know, we're gonna be kind of hinging pretty hard on like what are these, you know, X amount of like flex slots, like whatever you might consider them to be, and kind of go from there and then tune the sideboard a little bit. So and that's probably what we'll end up doing if one or both of us end up taking Phoenix.
I think the biggest thing is when it comes to the RC, reading the room correctly. And like because like sometimes it's really easy to figure out what's going to be there. Like last RC, like the last Pioneer RC was kind of easy to figure out what was going to be there. I knew there was going to be a lot of Amalia that got played because people were picking up that deck because it was brand new. I knew that Vampire, or not, it wasn't Vampire Strike. The Rakdos mid range, it was more of a mid range aggro almost, was going to get played. I didn't think blue white was going to be as prevalent as it was. I misread that, and I thought that there would be a lot of like Convoke, and I was pretty right on my guesses. Oh, Phoenix too. I don't think I said Phoenix, but Phoenix. I knew Phoenix was going to be big. And I was pretty right on my guesses, and I played, I think, averagely well against what I did and what I didn't do. But that's gonna be the hardest thing is figuring out what we're gonna expect. It's like if we assume there's gonna be a lot of aggro and we get that correct, we're gonna look like geniuses if we play, you know, a lot of good main board hate against aggro. If we think there's gonna be a lot of aggro and then blue white control is 80% of the meta for some reason, we're gonna look like dumbasses. And that's I think gonna be the biggest gamble of anyone going into DC is knowing what they think the meta is going to be, guessing either correctly or incorrectly, and having the correct sideboard or game plan for that.
Oh yeah. It's gonna take a little bit of luck. It's gonna be a little bit of a guessing game. Just kind of like I think more or less like what are you comfortable losing to, or like you know what do you want to go out there and like beat and you know try to set out to accomplish that goal. And you know I think we got plenty of time. We can get it figured out. Hopefully by then and at least be confident in a pick rather than just like it's probably just this and then just kind of being you know was this a mistake or not.
Yeah. But I mean, like I said, we got a month to figure this out and then buy cards and stuff for.
True.
But I'm interested to see. I'm hoping that the new standard set doesn't shake up the meta a ridiculous amount because I really don't want to have to go buy a whole bunch of cards at pre-release pricing because it's always horrendous to do. I love buying cards. It's $30 pre-release, and 2 months later it's down to $1.50.
Stonks. Buy high, never sell.
The magic way.
That is the the magic way. I've heard it called the Mangu way.
Oh yeah.
The Mangu way. Buy high, never sell.
I think he posted his 4 Nadus, 4 Griefs that he owned.
Probably the Shukos as well, because I don't think Shuko is going to see any meaningful play anywhere.
Is he's playing Breakfast and Legacy. That's about it.
Yeah, is that modern? No. Nerd.
I will say I now have 4 Griefs. I have 4 Furies. I have 4 Violent Outbursts.
Buy 4 Nadu.
I was so waiting for Shuko to get banned, not Nadu. I was waiting for
Where, man?
Just waiting for it. But I think that's all I have to say so far. I'm really interested to keep discussing DC as a whole and keep digging into that and letting people know what's going on with it, or pretending that I have a good read on the meta.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we're gonna, well, we're gonna be in there. We're gonna be in the trenches. We're gonna be fighting for our lives out there. No R. Kelly. I'm fighting for my life out now. I'm fighting for my life right now.
So,
And then he's getting arrested. Fuck R. Kelly.
you're not wrong. You're just not young enough to do it.
That's true. Yeah, that's fucked up. Do I need to cut that?
Maybe.
Probably not. I'm sure it's fine. I mean, like, it's true. I mean, like, whatever. Anyway, like, we're not here to talk about R. Kelly, whatever. I think if that's all you got, like, that's all I got. I think I'm good. We can leave it at that. Magic's in I think, a pretty interesting place right now. I think it's going to be a lot of fun exploring the Pioneer format, because that'll probably be the one that gets a little bit more focus for me in terms of, like, actually playing and stuff, even though there is modern RCQs going on. Pioneer seems like it's going to be the more important thing, because I could just qualify for the next RC at that RC, so why not?
Exactly. Well, see, what you don't understand is we're both going to spike an RCQ before we get to that RC, so it'll be fine. So we'll already be qualified going into that RC.
Well, then we'll be qualified for Portland as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So there we go.
Yeah.
Well, all right, everyone. That's going to do it for episode 18 of the Casual Spikes podcast. I'm Dakota. That's Randy. Go ahead, check out our channels, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Randy's stuff is going to be linked in the description down below. Go show him support. Some support as I struggle to finish my last few lines of the video, as I always do. The support's always greatly appreciated. If you have any questions, comment, concerns, anything like that, feel free to leave them underneath the video in the comments. I read them. I'll usually end up discussing them with Randy or whatever, and we'll take any and all feedback, any questions, anything. So, we do greatly appreciate the support and everything, because this has been a lot of fun. I enjoy doing this.
So do I. I have fun doing this. I have fun making videos and such. Along with the podcast, it's cool just to kind of sit here and talk about Magic as much as we can.
Well, alrighty, folks. Well, we'll catch y'all later for the next episode. I'm not sure exactly what we're gonna have happen, but we'll we do our best. We figure it out, as the kids say. But, alrighty, good night, everyone. We'll see you all later, and have a good rest of your day. I'm gonna hope that actually stops the recording and it doesn't just hey, bind me to this, and then I don't work.